Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here. I'm in beautiful Ubud in Bali, Indonesia, with Mikael, that you probably recognize because we hanged out several years ago back in Kauai, beautiful Kauai, and now you live here in this magnificent paradise. A bit different energies are going on here, and we're going to speak about what you went through and what a lot of us are going through right now. And we're going to talk a bit of the shadow work that is needed or that can be done to take it further, to take it to the next level, that probably the earth, who's asking us to do that? Is it actually our soul? Is it the earth? Is it the universe begging for us to do this? Or we must do it because we're just in the middle of it and there must be some work to be done?
Yeah, that's a lot of a smorgasbord of everything right there. That's a great question, Lilou. Well, it's lovely to see you again, first of all. I'm so honored to have this round two in Mama Bali here, this gorgeous, incredible, sensual, magnetic place. It's funny you say that because I literally was we just had Bali Spirit Festival, and it's our yearly, festival here in Bali and right outside Ubud. And I actually, there was a woman who was doing a talk about sort of what the Balinese have held here for thousands of years, generation and generation, these four mystical mountains that create this like cross energy. And in this cross energy, it actually is a place where, because there's so much prayer that happens in Bali, like every day the Balinese are praying, there's so many temples, it's just a huge part of the culture, that they're actually praying because this island is the filter feeder for all the sort of unwanted stuff from the rest of the grid of the planet. And it filters all here. So we are in a way like the Shakti bottom feeders for the planet. And so we're talking about shadow and talking about, dealing with unresolved issues, dealing with kind of like the implosion of what's happening around the planet right now in places like Paris and Brussels and, all these things, whether or not whoever the victim was, whoever the oppressor is, or whoever the hero is, it's just this archetypal game that's playing out. But really what it is it's triggering this sort of neural response within the collective consciousness right now. It's triggering, excuse my French, my English, it's triggering the shit. And we're all going through it. We're all being asked to move through this. We're all being asked to kind of be in the bottom filter feeder of this like giant aquarium that is this beautiful planet. It's like we're going into the dregs right now.
But you started this process back in Kauai, from my understanding, which made you kind of move here 3 years ago. So there must be some differences wherever we are in the planet. Like here, it shakes us up. It reminds me a bit of the energy of Sedona or of Big Island. There's some places where it's like kind of like it's just like amplified, no?
Yeah, I would say the volume is turned up because like I was saying, it's like Bali kind of represents, like they say secretly that Bali is Kali. So if Bali is actually Kali, she has so much Shakti that, traditional Hindu mythology, Kali is the one that actually is the one that takes down Shiva. And there's like that kind of ubiquitous picture of like Kali on Shiva with her hands and he's about to cut his head off. And she, it's like, it's very gory. It's very like, it's in your face. It's very viscerally, like somatically like death and suffering. But really what it represents is like, any part of us that is still playing around in these sort of God and demigod realms and, everything's going to last forever, and kind of in the West and even like Hawaii, we just think that like everything is going to last forever. We sort of have that American mentality that it's just like, all right, we're just cruising, for years. And that doesn't happen here. There's cycles. The Balinese calendar is 3 different calendars, and they all cycle within each other. And so there's this like deep prayer of like honoring the 3 gunas. It's the deep prayer of honoring like the creative aspect of life. It's honoring the preserving aspect of life. So we have Brahma, then we have Vishnu, and then we have Shiva, we have Kali, we have this destroyer aspect. And so these cycles are constantly turning, and in a way, they're like gears interlocking. There's nothing that's like safe and permanent, and that your crystals are going to be perfect forever, and you can stay in the 7 virtues and stay in the 7th heaven. And I think there's a little of that complacency in the West, and in our time in Kauai and Hawaii. Like, of course, I'm a complete crystalline being, and I'm like Mr. Dolphin, whale, everything. But I think my time here and what I've chosen is to actually get into the deeper, like, dirtiness of humanity. Like, really feel like the cycles of these 3 gunas, and really feel the suffering within that kind of triggers this neural response of pain and pain body, and suffering and victimhood, and going into like the 7 deadly sins.
But do you feel you've chosen it, or it's kind of because it gets us pretty angry, at times, or like just like, what's going on? Why am I facing this right now? And I thought I had worked on it already, or I'm doing the work. I mean, it feels unfair at times. And do you feel it has chosen you, or what it's just like it landed on you? It seems to have been pretty rough what you went through, and what a lot of people are going through right now. So how to deal with that when it comes?
Yeah, it's sometimes things come out of the blue, and they, I think after my mother passed, that was really a trigger point, that really, I just moved to Bali, and, my lineage is Asian and Chinese, and it's a big mix, and there's many other things going on, and
we can see that.
And
isn't he gorgeous? Oh my God!
And so I just fully. I think really what it was is like getting out of this sort of poster way of being and looking at, and I still feel like I'm in it. It's like I don't think there's I've got it. I think it's more of like personally what I've dished out for so many years, teaching and facilitating and assisting others, and sessions and group work and tours, and for 15 16 17 years, depending on what film and everything, just service. We just call it service. It's like I needed this time to really go to a notch, like you're saying, like a tourniquet, like it was like a tourniquet of me going deeper into myself, and really just whatever was reflecting that was resisting or jealous of me or projecting on me, or defamation of my character, or anything. It's like a movie. It's like if you only hang out in one type of movie all the time, you're not getting like sort of the bandwidth. You're not being well-rounded in all the different like films out there. Not to say that we all want to hang out in Zombieland all the time, or we want to hang out like in some dramatic thriller all the time, but sometimes we need that scene in the movie in order for us to go back what we've watching all the time, or what we're popping into our field of awareness, into our unified field of consciousness. And sometimes we have to get out of that, and we have to feel these other feelings in order to strengthen and really embody what we've maybe talked about to a certain level, but we've only talked about it. And I humbly speak for myself. It was like maybe a certain part of me was talking about it, but then I wasn't embodying it. And so I popped that into my field, and those beloved reflections to reflect back the shadow of sort of like the part of me that was like, oh, I thought I cleaned out all my closets, but oh, lo and behold, I opened the door and I like got all my cleaning supplies, and I realized, wow, oh, there's a Buddha right there. Okay. But the Buddha's always been there. He's just been in the corner. Everything else is clean. Oh, but the Buddha itself actually is covering up like a whole host of like crap and shit and stuff that I didn't want to deal with.
I love when you say that you're having tea with those other entities or this other energy that is there, like accepting what's so is a big one.
Right. So it was like, okay, let's take the Buddha out. Oh my goodness. It's like all of a sudden the Buddha was covering up all this rot, and there were just all these entities and beings that were just having this gay old party down there. And it was like I had to dive into it and actually like serve up tea to these beings, and just like fully, yeah, like we were saying, like it's like being able to have tea with your dysfunctional entities and the beings that maybe want to take you out or take you down or, want to create a terrorist attack inside of you. You
felt cursed, or do you feel cursed sometimes, or when things like that are hard on ourselves, like we kind of find that it's another thing outside of us that wants, like, our darker force that wants to kind of put us down, or conspiracy theories or government or whatever, so that we don't put our light out. Like, we have those conversations, but does that really serve us? Is that the truth, or is that another thing, another way to kind of escape our own responsibility?
I feel that it's valid. I feel like it's like having a conversation on the third dimension is one thing, and then you have another conversation on the fourth dimension, but you got to keep going up dimensions. Yeah. So on one level of perception, it is valid. I mean, yes, on one level of perception, we are victims. Yes, there are chemtrails, there are terrorist attacks that are being orchestrated, and most of them are dummy attacks in order to just create more fear, and then we can get in this place where, there's a greater collective victimhood, and where are the oppressors? Oh, they're the reptilians. Oh, they're the 13 families. Oh, we can get into this whole, like, fractal, it's like it becomes like from personal, then it becomes interpersonal, then it becomes impersonal, and then it becomes, us, the people, versus, like, these beings. And the fact is that it's all a game. And so all of us have chosen to play this game. And we have to actually transcend sort of planting our stake at, like, this place, saying, okay, well, we're just going to hang out here and then start pointing the fingers. And the basic fact is like, even though we're talking about the fourth dimension, it's not the ultimate dimension. But we have to acknowledge it. We've got to watch the movie. So personally, I got to watch that movie here in Bali after my move from Kauai 3 years ago. And through that, what it's done for me is it's actually humbled me. It's gotten me into this space of, like, even deeper creativity. And through the letting go of, like, any parts of myself in that closet, so to speak, where the Buddha was, like, protecting it, or like, oh, it's fine, the Buddha's got it covered. Well, the Buddha doesn't have it covered. What if the Buddha doesn't have it covered? What if the Kuan Yin doesn't have it covered? It's like there's a part of me that's still relying on that external form. And it was like, there's no forms now. It's like now we just have to embrace, I have to embrace, we have to embrace, we're all collective. I'm doing it for the one as much as everyone else, out there listening in this moment is also part of that. All of us are doing it for the one. We're all part of this unified field. And the unified field is not polarized. It's not light polarized. We've got to do the shadow polarization. And, it's like a good friend of mine, dear John Peck, who's a legendary surfer, amazing being. He used to say to me all the time, he's like, Mikael, brother, it's like there's white magic and then there's black magic. And it's our job to get into the clear and stay in the clear magic. So white magic is not better than black magic, and black magic is not better than white magic. The issue is when we polarize. So if we ping pong ball back between these things, and we all do it, we go through that emotional wave, we go through that depression, we go through that unhappiness, we go through that triggering of anger and frustration, and it triggers all these other neural responses in our body and our somatic intelligence. It triggers our emotions to go crazy and wild, right? But it's that ping pong that then is forcing us to, like, really get into that 0 point within that unified field of consciousness, get into that center. And that's this torquing of this energy is like, we see it in Bali, and we see, and this may be like sort of the epicenter for the planet in relationship to, like, garbage dumping and filtering it out, but at the same time, when you realize, like, and you can get through that wobble and that kind of, like, stickiness and get into the center, you realize that you are in the clear magic. And in that clear magic, it's like there's a place where you accept Kali as much as you accept, Brahma and Lakshmi and all the different gods and goddesses. It's like, it's honoring, like, all of them, and realizing that actually without honoring all of them, we can't actually play the game completely. We can't actually, like, be present completely. We can't actually embody the unified field completely. And
this image of the infinite sign that actually I saw in one of your beautiful pieces here that you're wearing. But on this here, on the side, Yeah, because it's like this infinite. There's the kind of the good and the bad, and there's this point in the middle, no, where it meets and where we can create clear magic. I like that. Yeah. The 0 point, this place of harmony and acceptance. Huh?
Yin yang, clear magic. Yeah.
You've created many things out of these turbulent times, and I think that's very inspiring. You know, the documentary. I don't know which point. When did you start it? Because I want to do a whole other video on Anastasia. Actually, the part 2 will be on that, because the ringing cedar and all that was a big one in the United States when I was doing the Juicy Living tour, and still is very. You have some new information, so we'll talk about more maybe that. But you're how did this all this personal shift and what you had to go through, how did it impact your own work and how you make decisions now and maybe transmit even or share to your students or in sessions?
I think I swear a lot more.
Nice.
You know, I was just recently saw this video about Osho. Have you seen this Osho video? Fuck. And the value of fuck. This word is the most amazing word in the English language. You know, I love Osho, and just the fact that he just went right in there. You know, and it was just so rebellious. And I think for me, it's brought me back to get out of, like I was saying, out of any part of me that was still wanting to be this untainted Buddha, and get into the taint, get into the Zorba, getting into the sensuality and the dirt, and just get in there and just be fucking cool with it. Just dive into it. No more bullshit, you know, no more kind of cosmic fluffy, you know. I mean,
dissension, really, yeah?
Total dissension, total diving into it. And I think part of that was, you know, a lot of it is honoring the feminine, honoring my mother. I had to become what my mother was almost protecting me when she was alive, you know, because I was the youngest boy and yada, yada, yada. And so there's this karmic loop. And I think for me, and what I share a lot more, is just this deep, it's almost I've had to become my own mother. There's no mother outside of myself except for my own mother that can take care of myself and hold myself unconditionally, you know, as a man. And through that process has been all that resistance to what it means to fully surrender to my own mother, and fully surrender to that feminine, you know, that I so relied on some level of an energetic umbilical cord, you know, especially because I was so close to my mother and she was one of my soulmates, that it was now it's she's, you know, she's laughing right now, because it's the work that she knew that I was always going to have to show up for at some point, you know, and I think we all have to show up for, you know, and it's really that feminine, all-encompassing energy that Shakti, Kali represents, and we have to embody that, whether we're men or women, and be able to then hold this greater divine embodiment of what love is tangibly. In the most simple, mundane, clean up the shit tasks, all the way to these exalted visionary aspects of, you know, sort of, you know, I've definitely been that. And also completely eradicating the parts of the spiritual ego, you know, that I think that is a natural evolution of all of us. And you have to have so much discernment, you know, so much discrimination against that, because, you know, I know you probably could relate to this. It's being someone who's outspoken and shining their light. It's there's a lot of ignorance and confusion that wants to dampen that light, that wants to challenge that light, that wants to possess that light, that wants to put that light on a pedestal, that wants to mold that light into what it thinks it ought to be, and how it's always going to be for it, which just becomes this convoluted mess of, you know, bullshit, really. And it's up to us as individuals who are choosing that we've signed up for this already to show up and be fully present. And also, I think for me, also consciously come in with more humility, or come in with more laughter, come in with more ability to kind of diffuse the situation and allow people to you know, be able to get close to me. and gravitate towards me instead of being burnt. And I think because I was so, before my mom passed, 2.5 years ago, it was like I was still parts of me polarized, and I wasn't embracing that part of me that could really just allow people to touch me as a human being and allow myself to touch myself as a human being. Because at the end of the day, it's our humanness. It's that we've got to get into the nitty gritty. We've got to realize that the suffering that's affecting so many things that are happening, like the refugees in Greece stranded to, the earthquakes that are stranding people in Nepal, and the daily things that are happening, these acts of terrorism and fear and limitation. It's forcing us to get into this deeper humanity where the glue is bringing us together, and it's destroying all the walls that we've created. We've co-created walls. We all have. And I fully have myself too. Totally raise my hand, and it's those walls that have to be destroyed. And I think that's really what Kali Bali has really taught me, is that and continues to this moment to teach me, and to continue to show up, after all my walls have been broken down, and still show up in vulnerability, and still show up with truth, and still show up without getting defensive or without reacting, or even if you do, then coming into that ho'oponopono, coming into that, forgiveness, just coming into that I'm sorry, and coming into that humanity, I totally fucked up, and it's okay.
Yeah. And we'll continue to make mistakes as human beings, but it's beautiful. We have that possibility to say I fucked up, and this is where I'm at, and it's okay. I didn't know any better, and now you can count on me for doing that, or being light, or being at service.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in sort of the traditional, sort of pathway that I learned from my Rinpoche, Chojo Rinpoche, and spending 3 years as a Tibetan Buddhist, and 10-hour practices a day, it was like all the stories that I learned from him were like so many Rinpoches, so many of his brothers, that were these realized beings, they could do magical things. And at the same time, it was like some of them were like, one of his really good friends, who is the reincarnation of Jetsun Milarepa, which is Tibet's famous yogi saint, and that's kind of my lineage, is like he decided this life, he taught a few times, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go and hang out with, the homeless. I'm going to go hang out in the clubs of Las Vegas with my 2 Dakini sisters. I'm not choosing to teach and be a teacher and put on that mantle and that hat. And so there was, it's just like, it's these choice points. It's like, and this is one of the most realized beings in my lineage. And the message is that after we become enlightened, we have to literally sit in the dark. We have to sit with the shit. We have to be the shit. We have to transmute the shit. It's not enough for us to just hang out.
It's not enough to think crystals and love and light, and that doesn't transmute really we talked a lot about it in the other interviews at the festival about that, and it feels like these are the times to do that work. Yeah.
I mean, the crystals are still so important, but if we don't come together as a human tribe, and I think that's really where the indigenous aspect is the most important, is following really the earth, the people of the earth, and in Bali, it's so beautiful. One of the reasons I left is because my kahu and kahuna pony passed on in Kauai, and I could never really find. I think it's really important to find elders. It's important to really connect. Everyone's got to have elders. If you're co-creating a tribe, traditional tribes have eldership. You have younglings, and we're sort of the middle, and so we need this dynamic in order to give us a cohesive, coherent, rites of passage and initiation into these different levels of service within the tribe, within levels of community, and so for me, it's like I'm always looking for that, and always wanting that sort of mentorship, and then not finding it and realizing that so many of them were abusing drugs or alcohol, and it really it's so much pain in Kauai and Hawaii because of that, and they don't have their lands back. Yeah. But coming to Bali, it's like the Dutch left 75 years ago, and the Balinese have their lands back. So there's been several generations where they've cultivated their prayers, and they've cultivated this depth of connection to the land, to the Aina, you know, and so they're deeply rooted into the culture. The culture is so, you know, that's why it's such a prayerful, you know, energy here, you know, and it goes directly against sort of the separation that we have because we're playing in these higher crystalline etheric vibrations, and it's stabilized, but it's stabilized because we're not so connected back into the earth. Because so much of the West, the original peoples of the earth, have either died, have been ostracized, have been burnt at the stake, or have been kicked off their lands. So a lot of us are just, you know, we're coming into these blocks of these squares and these, you know, it's, you know, the one geometry that really rules the cities of the world, right? In Paris, France, and Honolulu, it's like it's all everywhere. And there's no connection to the original stewards of the land. And so we've had to create this separation. And in that separation, we're safe, but we're also disconnected. So when you come to like a place like Bali, and there's many other places, you know, like the Amazon or the Congo, or many places where it's like people have their land back, you know, you're forced to change. You're forced to like deal with like stuff that comes up, and it starts to seep up out of the woodwork, you know. I know you understand this. And so it's like, wow, can I freaking just totally embrace this part of me? Can I embrace what I'm resisting? Can I just totally go in there, you know, and just serve up tea to this part of myself, you know, that wants to like sacrifice and kill and maim and destroy and rage and just like whatever, you know, as much as I want to like bliss out and be in ecstasy and, you know, be in my crystalline field and talk about, you know, new age things, which is all fun and games, but it's just one game. You know, and there's so many games to play, and in order for us to be game masters, we've got to play all the games, and we got to just embrace them. And it doesn't mean you got to hang out in that game and watch that movie forever, so to speak.
And we have a say in the matter. We're co-creators, right? So it's not like we have to be just. We have to stay there and just subir in French. It's like when you are in that flow and it kind of like it hits you, and you don't do anything. We have a say in the matter.
Absolutely. We have a say in the matter. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it is learning. You really don't learn how to create sacred space, you know, until you're violated. You don't really know how to understand where your boundaries are until, you know, when you're such an open flowing being and then something comes in and seemingly attacks you, right? Because it's giving you an opportunity to understand boundaries. It's giving you an understanding to like really not just be in the heart, but also to respect those energies and respect yourself within those boundaries and learn how to say no, you know, and learn how to get into that energy of like, you know, the spiritual warrior in a way. It's like men and women and children have got to become spiritual warriors. And I think more than ever, that's something, you know, that's a keynote thread in this conversation in relationship to Bali. A lot of the people in Bali, you know, really embody that spiritual warriorship, you know, and we have our bullshit as every other kind of community does, but we're all forming community, you know, wherever you are on this planet. We're forming tribe, we're forming community. We have to hui together. If you're being called to stay in your family homeland, your ancestral homeland, or you're being called to some other area like, you know, Ubud, Bali, or Kauai, or Sedona, or any of these places, these hubs, you know, anywhere on the planet, Glastonbury, you know, it's like you're coming together and you're needing to work out whatever the karma is right now for that particular area. And it takes a certain level of warriorship to do that. Yes. And it comes from the heart, it comes from respect, it comes from respecting yourself and having the confidence to like come together and unite people.
Yeah. It's a privilege to do that. Like I felt called to Paris, you know, Sonia Choquette as well, this from the US. But this is a privilege to be in those places too. I mean, it might be challenging, but it's like we're rightly equipped.
Totally. I think we've all signed up. The universe has assisted us and supported us to sign up for everything that we can handle in every moment. Yes. Even if it's seemingly relatively just chaotic and confusing and you don't know your left from your right or your up from your down or your ass from the hole in the wall for that sake. It's like you have signed up with all the gifts. You have the sound, you have the breath, you have the movement, you have the meditation, you have the ability to go in and transmute anything.
That reminds me of this ring. I'm actually wearing one of Mikael's jewelry designs that he created here. This is like a butt, basically, with a heart in the middle of it. Okay,
that's right. You are wearing exactly. That's kind of the epitome of like what happens here in freaking Bali. You know, it's like
all around the world too.
We are in the womb filter of the ass fantastic of the planet, and it's the heart that really connects us back in. It connects us into that clear magic.
Yeah. Tell us one word about this amazing, crazy idea to create your own talismans and putting it together. Because I remember being in Kauai and seeing all those crystals, and you were in this. I've never seen that many actually in that type of size of room. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go into the part 2 on this other video about Anastasia, which is really much a conversation I would love to have with you. So yeah, what's up with those wild things that you're putting together? I mean, I love it. Oh my God, isn't that gorgeous?
Stunning. You look stunning.
This is serious.
Mm-hmm. This is serious. It's really serious.
Because you get those ideas, it comes to you, you see the designs.
Well, I was really stewarding crystal beings and gems and semi-precious gems for 10 years and kind of doing the Tucson Gem and Festival circuit and helping people understand the crystalline light body and sort of my move to Bali, I started having these visions of actually co-creating with these beings and bringing them into these special amulets of power and these talismans of sort of these golden age talismans of how can we bring all this spiritual energy and make it tangible and visceral and, adorn people and help them to connect with the energy tangibly, materially in this dimension and really infuse them with like the prayers and infuse them like source and stream, sort of like the consciousness and all the different portals and gateways that I've done in over 36 countries at this point and tapping into that neural network that those, the whole planetary grid and bring back a big heart. The core heart culture of my unification is Mu, the heart of Lemuria. And sort of this ancient pre-Atlantean, pre-Lemurian, the heart of Lemuria, when we were all embodying the unified field and embodying this androgyny, and you're seeing this in these kids these days. They're embodying the masculine and feminine so deeply, and it's all over the news, it's like there's a whole new generation that's like not masculine or feminine, and they're androgynous because we're coming back to this state of unified field, this unity in the physical body and this desire to embody what I feel is as a cultural phenomenon of Mu. And so it's like that Mu energy, that motherland united, it's like uniting into like that original template and all of the different 12 tribes, that were supposedly lost. Well, in Kauai, they were never lost, it was paradise found always. And Kauai is connected to the Maoris, and the Maoris are connected to the Tahitians and Bora Bora and, Easter Island and all the way over to, the Aboriginals in Australia and up to Japan. And, I was in Japan a couple months ago, or last year, and went to Yonaguni and had this whole Mu download there and these ancient sites in the water connecting all the way through Taiwan and Indonesia. And so it's like tapping into this neural network of like consciousness of like this rising of this embodiment is this like, okay, it's those of us who have done all this spiritual work and we've kind of gone through the spectrum of games and we've been through the shit and now we're coming back full circle. And it's like, oh, where is that? What does it mean to be in the clear magic? What does it mean to be in the full circle of like being in the 0 point? What is the culture of 0 point? What is the culture of being in the unified field and being in that singularity, that point, And for me, it's Mu, and it's bringing that back. So the best way that I could do it is because I'm such a creative person. Was like, how can I work with a whole team now? And, I do the designs and, there's carvers and there's casters and there's, metal workers and, it's a whole
another project.
It's a whole nother project, but I love
how it's carved so precisely. Like you should see that there's another one. There's a little Ganesha in it. Like these are like it's teeny.
It's tiny. Yeah. And just really honoring the Balinese, because the Balinese really come from this long line all the way to the Majapahit lineage, which was the royal beings that came from, the other islands of Indonesia. And this royalty came and they intermarried with the indigenous, and they taught them all their cultural, artisanal craftsmanship. And so it's just seeped out through the woodwork and through the metals and through the architecture, and it's beautiful, it's royal. And yet at the same time, a lot of the children are then of these craftsmen are like wanting to become, they're wanting to become like, where's the next iPad? Where's the next iPhone? I want McDonald's. And it's kind of this irony, and so I feel like part of grounding who I am and what has really helped me through this kind of like turbulent time to really keep showing up for the heart of humanity is, making creative jewelry and really being in this creative process with them and getting to know them and, just really being with the indigenous and learning about them and helping them to breathe, helping them to understand meditation. And, so many of them are so connected. They're already doing the work on such a deep level, and they're super, super aware. And so it's just, we're just stewards. We're guests here. I'm a guest here, and I think part of just knowing that is very impermanent helps me to feel secure in that impermanence, that I'm creating a circuit where it's not just about me, it's also about helping them and feeding their families and making sure that the feedback loop is moving, So I'm honored. It's been an amazing journey creating Moose Stars, and there's...
You call them how? You call it Moose Stars?
Yeah. MUSTARZ, Moose Stars with a Z.
So cute. Oh my God. This conversation can go forever. I would like to start the one on Anastasia. So please, join for the part 2 here, New Earth's Destiny. We're going to speak about the movie that you put together, the documentary here on Anastasia, The Ringing Cedars. A lot of you have read those books, and let's see what's going on here on this Russian part. Okay. Thank you so much for this beautiful video, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and your this has been great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lilou. God bless you.
And to you, delicious co-creators, sending you so much love from beautiful Bali. Bye-bye. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.